times I've come on here just to talk to you from me. Normally, I do vets I recommend at this time, and I bring on one of the lovely vets that's in our group, and we let you ask questions to the veterinarians and we talk. But I have been really wanting to dive deep into some of the stuff, things that I experience, and talk a little bit about the skin's microbiome from a groomer's perspective, because it's imperative that you understand all of the ins and outs, because one of the biggest reasons that our animals are being seen by veterinarians and why veterinarians are completely inundated is because of the skin problems that are dealing with. And so the allergies, the skin, the ear canal is also what I like to talk about as well when we're talking about the skin, because the ear flaps have skin and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to spend this time with you also because I was supposed to be in Arizona with my mom, and then my sister got COVID. And so it was a perfect opportunity for me, because I often like to bring on other experts because I get really, really excited about all of the information that they can share with you. But I want you to also know that I have 37 years of experience working with animals, and I was a vet tech for 12 of those years. So I have my own experiences, and I want to share them with you today. And one of the things I tell people all the time, and just really quick, if you are coming on and you have any questions, even if it isn't about the microbiome, I can answer them for you. I am not a veterinarian. So anything that I share with you will be my experience from both as a vet tech and as working in the spa. So at the spa, we probably see anywhere between 40, 50, during our heightened season, maybe 60 dogs a day. I have a huge staff. I have a staff of 28 people. And we have 7 groomers, and we have estheticians. I train all of my staff how to recognize skin problems. And then we work from that. And we have a therapy bathroom where we spend a great deal of time. Most people who know me, if you are a client at the spa, you hardly ever see me up in front because I spend a great deal of my time in the therapy bathrooms that we have. So we have a couple of bathtubs at the spa. Some of them are just regular baths that we're doing, but I spend 99% of my time in the therapy room. And in that room, we are identifying different skin problems and disorders and whether your dog is shedding too much. And so I bounce back and forth with nutrition and my therapy bathroom. And the reason why I bounce back and forth like that is because they work together, and without one, you can't have the other. And so I think that's a song. Can't remember it, but maybe one of you guys does. But you need to have both working side by side together. So, and the reason I say that is because for example, you may have heard the term the microbiome. And a lot of times people think of the microbiome as the gut. And some people think that there is only one microbiome, and that is your gut. But the reality is that your body has little areas. Your eye has its own microbiome, your heart, your ears, the skin, the gut microbiome, and the skin's microbiome. And so basically the easiest way to understand what a microbiome is for me when I first started learning about it is it's basically just an ecosystem. And in order for there to be synergy and everything working well together, then the microbiome has to have diversity, and it has to have balance, and it has to have all of the elements. Julianne Lee, who's one of my favorite people to listen to, often talks about Yellowstone National Park and how when they removed the wolves, it created a huge, huge problem within Yellowstone. Well, it's very similar with your dog's skin and your dog's gut and your dog's ears and your dog's overall balance for health has to do with the microbiome. So today, I really, really want to talk to you about, if you were on and you saw me say, stop bathing your dogs. I know that's kind of a shocker. And for those of us, including myself, who sleep with our animals, the thought of not bathing our animals probably makes you want to just, I don't know, throw a rock at me, maybe. I don't know, maybe a dirt clod at me. But I promise you, when we're done with this talk, you'll have a better understanding of why I say that. And I hope that coming from somebody who makes a living and thoroughly enjoys bathing dogs, I'm hoping you'll understand the importance of what I'm going to be talking about. And of course, as you're coming on, please make sure that you say hi. I always like to know who's watching and listening. And so please give me a little wave if you're there. But so let's talk a little bit about when I talked about, if you've ever listened to Julianne Lee or any of us on here, you've heard us talk about the gut's microbiome. So why does that affect the skin? So the skin of your dog, and I see dogs every single day, not one dog, but probably 15 out of the 40 or so dogs that I see in a day have some sort of skin problem, whether that's a bacterial infection or a yeast infection, or they're getting hot spots, or they're getting uh, growths and all sorts of stuff that are happening on their body. And those are because the skin has its own level of bacteria that lives on it, and less than humans though, because they have so much fur. But humans have, they haven't even identified all of the bacteria on humans, and on dogs they're even less have they been able to identify. But we do know there are hundreds of different bacteria that live on the skin. So how do dogs get bacteria living on the skin? Well, in the wild they get it a couple of different ways. They get it from rolling around in dirt, and they're going to get that replaced within them. They also get it from chewing and licking on themselves. They can transplant it onto them. And they also get it from their litter mates. And so wolves are pack animals, so they live in a huge pack. And so as they're laying together, playing with each other, touching each other, they can transfer those bacteria onto each other. Well, a lot of times we take our animals, unless you're me, you may only have one dog living in the house. And so that one dog is having a harder time, especially if we're bathing him too much and his gut microbiome or his mouth's microbiome is not healthy. So when your dog is chewing and licking on himself, he's transferring bad bacteria instead of good bacteria. And so when I say they work together, which is why I go from my therapy room bath and then back into nutrition, because I understand that the skin also needs to eat, so to speak. And so we need to have those good bacteria. And so when I talk about not bathing your dogs, it's because what we're doing is we're like way overbathing our dogs. And aside from overbathing them, it's what we're using to bathe them and what we're not using to bathe them in. So that's what I want to talk to you guys a little bit about. The average person, just off of my work at the spa and me doing my own testing to try to figure out what the average person, how often the average person bathes their dogs. And I was even surprised to find this out when I just started kind of looking into it. So I thought the average person was going to be bathing their dogs about every 4 weeks. And it turns out the average person, based on my own study, so it's not a scientific study, it's not published anywhere, but based on my own study at the spa, the average person is bathing their dogs every 2 weeks. How often do I bathe my dog? About every 2 to 2.5 months is when I bathe my dog. The traditional way, where I'm actually using a shampoo and I'm making sure that my dog is all fluffy and clean. And, I love the smell of him. I go that long. But in between that time, I do a few other things, which is what I'm going to suggest to you guys. So if you can do this. Now, every dog is different. And so just because I'm telling you not to overbathe your dog does not mean that I think your dog should get matted, that he shouldn't be checked for fleas, that he or she shouldn't get some kind of form. Like I know our dogs are going outside, and then you obviously don't want them to come in your house and be super dirty. However, don't underestimate what water can do. So water alone can do really significant amount of washing if you just get in there with your hands and you just kind of move stuff around and then do a nice cool bath. I like to do cooler baths on dogs because it helps bring down inflammation, especially if you're talking about the itchy dog. And dogs can stand a lot cooler of a water temperature than you and I can. So the cooler the bath, the actual better it is going to be for inflammation if your dog is itchy. But in between there, brushing your dog, making sure that you're getting mats out and doing those kind of things, checking for fleas. I have a little kitten sitting. This is Carl. Carl needs a home. I'm going to use this time as a little plug. So, I do a lot of rescue for the animal shelter. So little Carl is driving me crazy right now and he needs a home. If you want to hit me up on that. And you know what? I'll transition right now since we talked about it. Just keep in mind your cat should never be bathed unless, and Absolutely, unless your cat should never ever be bathed unless he has a medical condition that requires it, like some kind of a skin problem that's going on, or he has fleas that need to be taken care of. Sometimes cats need to be groomed because, and I own a cat hotel, so I bathe cats all the time. But if you have a cat who stopped grooming himself and now he's getting matted and he's dirty, you could have a serious problem. If that happens, you need to take your cat to the vet immediately. Don't ignore it. Cats do not stop grooming themselves unless there's something wrong with them, if they're sick. So if your cat's not grooming himself, then we need to go have him checked. Unfortunately, a lot of times that ends up being a kidney issue. So make sure that you get that checked. If your cat does have fleas or ticks or medical conditions, you need to bathe them. I would be very careful doing that at home by yourself unless you have some experience, but cat bathing can be very, very dangerous. It's the reason that I send people to the emergency room is cat bathing. That's every time I have a person get bit or something, it's through a cat. Dogs, we tend to be better at. Other reasons a cat might need to be groomed, but doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be bathed. Persians are known for this. We have any of your long, fluffy haired cats. Sometimes they can get matted because they're not in the wild. We don't have animals that look like that. Like animals have been bred to look like that, but in the wild we don't have these big, fluffy cats, and so the grooming on that can be a little bit rough, so to speak. So if you have a cat who's you're not able to get those mats out, then you want to take your cat to the groomer and make sure that those mats are being taken care of, because matting on the skin can lead to a lot of other problems. And so you want to make sure you want to address that. But that doesn't mean that your cat has to be bathed. Sometimes the groomer can just not cut. You don't ever want to use scissors on a mat, whether it's a dog or a cat, but especially a cat. So you want to have a groomer shave out those mats. Usually they end up behind their ears, sometimes in their chest area, sometimes down around their tummy area, they can get matted. So you want to make sure that that is taken care of. But again, doesn't mean that your cat has to necessarily be bathed. So you want to be real careful with overbathing your kitties. So let's talk a little bit about some of the problems. So what I see the most, and it is one of the most frustrating things for me, is when most of you probably know a lot about antibiotics. And if you keep taking antibiotics, you can kill off all of the bacteria in your gut, right? The antibiotics aren't designed to just go in and kill only the bad bacteria. They often kill off the good bacteria, which then causes this disruption in the gut, and it ruins the diversity, which is what we want. Just like Julianne talks about in Yellowstone, when one animal was removed from Yellowstone. So I always say, think of the wolf as bacteria in your gut and on your dog's skin. And if you remove one of those bacterias, you end up with the bacteria that's living in there. It's just out of control. It's dysbiosis. And so we want to make sure that we have an enormous amount of gut bacteria, both in the gut and on the skin. So one of the things that is the most frustrating for me is these dogs, and I have tons of them, and it's very hard for me to fight against because I'm not a veterinarian, but I have dogs that come to me constantly with their medicated shampoos. Over and over, I'm giving these dogs medicated shampoos that have very, very harsh antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti-everything. It just kills everything. And I have these dogs. I just had one. I'm going to share her story with you because it's just a fabulous story, and I love to see this. But a little schnauzer named Pepper. And Pepper was her veterinarian had prescribed a medicated shampoo, and Pepper had to get this medicated shampoo put on her every single week. She was bathed in an antibacterial shampoo. Actually, it was antibacterial, antifungal shampoo. And every week she had to do it. And if mom didn't do it every week, then her dog would get these little scabs that would form all over her neck, all over the back end of her. She'd get them up around her ears. It was awful for a lot of reasons. One, the mom was spending a lot of money on these antibacterial shampoos. The poor dog had to get a bath once a week. What dog wants to get bathed once a week? And mom was spending an enormous amount of time. And fourth, and probably the most importantly, it wasn't working. So, and it isn't without harm. And that is kind of the same thing we're seeing in antibiotics that are given to humans. They think, oh, it's just an antibiotic. There's no harm. There's a lot of harm. Well, there's also a lot of harm in those antibacterial shampoos that you use over and over and over. Rita Hogan said at our last past event, if it's not working, stop. It should come to a point where something is working. You don't just keep going and going and going. And what I keep experiencing at the spa is these dogs who have been on medicated shampoos for their entire lives at some point. Some of these dogs, their entire lives from day one. And I'm very close to stopping it and not allowing it anymore because it hurts my heart to watch it over and over and over. And what it does is it's just basically band-aiding your dog every week, but it's killing more and more. And the skin, you probably know this, but it's the same as your dog. Our skin is the largest organ. It's actually a living, breathing organ, right? If you cut it off and you leave it on the table, it shrivels up and dies. It decomposes. So it is a living organism. And when we're constantly killing off those bacteria that are there to protect, we are causing a huge amount of damage. So what do? We get all of these dogs in that have these allergies. They're chronically itching. They're using antimicrobial, antibacterial shampoos. And people are trying and they're frustrated. And what's happening is the dog's getting worse and worse and worse. And a lot of times you got to keep in mind, like, especially if your dog has a yeast problem, which hopefully has been diagnosed by an actual culture. I just read a study just recently about how most veterinarian cultures run on the skin don't even come close to picking up the right amount to know what is a healthy skin microbiome, not even close. And so they pull up one or two because there's very specialized tests that need to be done. But when you get those done and the vet says, oh, there's this bacteria, negative bacteria, bad bacteria, those can end up causing more problems than not if you are not making sure that the antibiotic, Dr. Morgan talks about this a lot, the antibiotic resistance, just prescribing antibiotics without knowing what you're dealing with. So we haven't even scratched the surface on whether or not we know exactly how many bacteria should live on the skin. We do know that there are hundreds of bacteria that live there. And when you use an antibacterial shampoo, you are killing those. So please, please, please consider doing something else. Hi, Maureen. Can you overbathe the dog? Don't they need their natural oils for healthy skin and coat? Absolutely. That's what that we've been talking about is you can absolutely overbathe your dog. The oils are one thing that definitely we all can dry out our skin when we're overbathing. But one of the reasons that happens is because two parts. So if you have a dog who you're bathing, this just recently happened. And I feel so bad because it happened to one of my receptionist's dog. His name is Buddy. And he once had a little, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure why we started using this particular type of shampoo, and it's a sulfur shampoo. And I have used sulfur in the past for dogs, but it can work temporarily. But for some reason, Gwen's not a groomer. And for some reason, she just kept using this sulfur shampoo and I didn't know it. And then one day I saw him and he was a greasy mess. And she's like, I don't know. I just keep using the tar and sulfur shampoo. And I said, well, that's your problem because the skin, when you use something that strips it of its oils, the body is speaking and the body is saying, I need more oils. And so what happens is the body overproduces oil. And so she would bathe Buddy. And then 3 days later, he was a greasy, oily mess. So the solution to her problem, and if you talk to Gwen, if you happen to be in the spa and you talk to Gwen, ask her to tell you because she couldn't believe what I was telling her was going to work. What I wanted her to do and what I want everybody to do with all of your dogs, whether they have this problem or not, but specifically if they do have a skin problem, and specifically if you have an oily dog, I want you to condition your dog before the bath. Before anything, you're going to condition your dog. You're going to get that conditioner in there and you're going to work it down into the skin. And then I want you to bathe your dog. And then I want you to condition your dog again. So it's condition, bathe, condition. And please don't use the shampoos. There's shampoos out there that say like it's a mixture of the shampoo and the conditioner, which will not work because the conditioner is being wiped out by the shampoo. So you really want to make sure those things are separate, and you want to condition, bathe, condition to make sure that you do that. But one of the reasons why we can end up with overbathing our dogs and causing the problems is because you're getting rid of some of those good bacterias. And those good bacterias, you know what's so interesting is they did a study checking to see if there was different bacterias on different parts of the body, which is really interesting, right? Because you just think, oh, it lives on the body, and so all these bacterias. But no, certain bacterias live on the nose, on the tip of the nose of a dog, is different than the bacteria that lives on the skin. So, I mean, on like on the paws, on the bottoms of the pads. So we have different bacteria that lives here versus what lives here. And they're very specifically have jobs to do. And one of those jobs is to prevent certain other diseases for coming in and bacterias from living. And so that's why you need that diversity. So do you know that? Yes, I do. Is that one of the medicated shampoos that you don't recommend? I don't. It's interesting. Yes. Yes. I mean, I don't recommend medicated shampoos for longer than like, and it would really depend. It would really, really, really depend on how bad the situation is and what we're talking about. So what I first recommend is that you, depending on the situation, getting a diagnosis of what do we have. So staph, for example, if your dog has a staph infection, it is really hard to get rid of. It can be really difficult to get rid of. And so in that case, I might temporarily, but when we're using a medicated shampoo, it's vital to then replace. So you guys know a lot about probiotics, I'm sure. Most of the people that listen to me, I know, Maureen, you're just beginning. I just want to let everybody guys know Maureen just got a new puppy. So she's just going to be learning so much. I'm so excited that you made it here, Maureen, because we're here every Wednesday night to help you guys. And she just got a brand new little golden puppy. So we're going to help her get some stuff under control here. You guys are going to have to help me. I don't know what SA is. I'm probably too old or something. I don't know. I'm really bad at that stuff. But when we're talking about doing a medicated, like if I were to tell you to take an antibiotic for, I don't know, a stomach issue that you had, you would, if you know enough about probiotics, you would understand the importance of adding that probiotic into your stomach as well. If you do an antibiotic, you want to do a probiotic. So it's very similar when I recommend, or if I am doing a medicated, thank you. So I'm so bad at that stuff. I always stress out that it means like something young. I don't even think about it in that kind of state. But yeah, so you got some sebaceous stuff going on. Yeah. So a medicated bath, in my opinion, when you start to have those little sebaceous those things are just awful. The more you keep using a medicated and cleaning it, you're killing off that good bacteria. So I might use that depending on how bad the situation is. But I got to tell you, we're going to talk a little bit about a micro bubbles system that I use that was recommended to me actually by Dr. Morgan. And I started using it, and I have got the best results from using that for like sebaceous cysts and any kind of like growths and stuff that are going on. That kind of, sorry, someone just wrote in some stuff about the chlorhexidine, the antiseptic shampoos and stuff. So, so she was just talking about the brand that that Veronica just mentioned. Yeah. So it has chlorhexidine, all of those kind of medicated stuff in there. But so with the sebaceous type situations, those oozing little cysts that you're talking about, I think, I truly believe those are diet related. And also the skin has already been disrupted. So the skin is already, so what I would do, and what I always do when I do a medicated bath on a dog, I use a product, and there's probably some more of them out there, so you can look into it, but I use a product called Nui Gear. And so I might take a situation really bad, like a staph infection, or a really, really bad yeast infection, or some bacterial infections. I might take something like a chlorhexidine shampoo and wash the dog, but it'd have to be really bad because I can take it. I just did a dog today who has a small little bacterial infection that's starting to form just right around his little belly. And I didn't use a medicated shampoo. Instead, I used a probiotic shampoo. And so I guess that's the best term to call it that. And then I'm just giving her oral antibiotics. And then one of the other things I would do, and I would do this for the sebaceous, is you can get some you can either get something from Adored Beast, which is a really great product, and start giving oral pre and probiotics. You definitely want to start giving that, because like I told you, if the gut is working and your dog starts licking himself, he's going to transfer those bacteria onto his skin. That's what we want. You want to make sure your dog's mouth stays clean, that his mouth's microbiome is nice and clean, those teeth are nice and clean, and that if he's got all of those bacteria forming in his body, when he licks and transfers it, he will transfer that onto his body. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. And then I would also take, you can get a raw unpasteurized goat's milk. And it's very important that you get raw unpasteurized goat's milk. But on those little sebaceous areas, take the goat's milk and actually place it on top of those little areas. So you want to, like, if you get a goat's milk that is on raw and unpasteurized, you're going to see like little clumps. It kind of looks like bad milk. That's actually good bacteria. So it clumps up like bad bacteria does, but it's just, you want to get those, get it on a little cotton ball. And then I take like the little sebaceous cysts, or if I have a hot spot, or if I have little, like some bacterial infections usually show up in this little circle. A lot of times people think that they are, that those little brown yucky circle things are, ringworm, but in fact, it's almost always a bacterial infection. And so if you take that little goat's milk and make sure it's raw, unpasteurized goat's milk, you take it and you drench it onto that area, what will happen is that good bacteria will transfer on. And if it's not too bad, it should start to eat away at that bad bacteria. So I've got really good results from doing that. It also works really well for those tear stains. Hi, Lily. Came in late. What will help with a sebaceous cyst, small one? I have been applying castor oil and coconut oil. Your thoughts? I know exactly what will work for a sebaceous cyst. We were talking a little bit about those gross little sebaceous cysts. I know it's hard, but if you can find, and they're starting to get them all over the place, but Buddy, one of the dogs I was talking about earlier, he had a bunch of sebaceous cysts on him, and we started using micro bubbles on the dog. Now you have to find a groomer. The machines are very expensive. So they're like $10,000 for this machine. I got it because it is doing amazing stuff with the animals that I work with without me needing to use all of these harsh products and these chlorhexidine shampoos that we were talking about earlier. So you can find somebody, you can even get a hold of, it's called TheraClean, THERCLEAN. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how this works. I wouldn't use coconut oil. Coconut oil can be very drying, believe it or not. I know it's an oil, but coconut oil, for whatever reason, sometimes can dry out their coat. And the drier the coat is, the more susceptible your animal is. I would take the goat's milk and I would place it straight onto your sebaceous cysts, let it sit overnight, and then in the morning you can wipe it off with just water and see if that works for you. The other probiotic shampoo that I'm talking about, which I highly recommend, and you can get it from a company called K9 to 5. But what it is a and I highly do recommend that you get the shampoo and the lotion. And the reason the lotion is very important is because I use it as a leave-on. That little dog I told you about today that I was working with, I sent his mom home with a little bit of it and told her to put it in a spray bottle and then to spray him every day down with the lotion. And I wish they wouldn't call it lotion, because it makes you think that it's thick, like a creamy lotion. And it is not at all. It's clear. It looks like water. And what it is, both their shampoo, their conditioner, which I don't actually use the conditioner, but you can if you want, their conditioner and their lotion is really all it is. And it's called Nui Gear is the name of the shampoo. But what it really is just a whole bunch of different bacterias. It's got some enzymes in it, like amylase in it. It's got lactobacillus bacteria in it. And so when I am using a medicated shampoo, because I have a dog that has staph and I know I need to get a hold of it, I got to get ahead of it a little bit, I will use a medicated shampoo. But I got to tell you guys, I am really not one to use medicated shampoos unless owners are forcing it on me, which always makes me cringe a little bit. If I'm going to use a medicated shampoo, then I'm going to use Nui Gear after. We call it the N shampoo. So if you were to, you don't have to get it from us. You can get it. I can have L'Oreal type it in for you guys. It's called K9 to 5. They're out of San Diego, and that will be really, really helpful for you. Thank you. My dog has red spots that sometimes ooze on his underbelly that I don't really want to wash with vinegar, but I need something with a little more punch than just water and as needed base. Okay, so the vinegar. So has he been? It sounds like if he's got the little pussy things, it sounds like he might have what's called pyoderma, and I don't know for sure. You guys know I cannot diagnose your dogs, but pyoderma is usually just a bacterial infection. I would absolutely take the goat's milk and raw unpasteurized goat's milk, and I would put it all over the belly and let it sit overnight, because that is bacteria and it's good bacteria, and it'll start to add in related to allergies. Yeah. See, this always puts me in a bad position because I'm not a vet, and I really want to be really careful but I do believe that a lot of vets just call everything allergies. Everything is considered an allergy, but I would recommend you look up pyoderma. It just means pus under the skin, and it's usually caused by a bacteria. But in order to know if it's a bacteria, they would have to run a culture. And like I said earlier in the show, they a lot of times they don't have the technology they'd have to send out to really look for all of those different bacteria. And that is actually something new that we're really starting to look at, and people are starting to really study the science of the skin and know exactly what bacteria should be living there in order for a healthy. So just recently there was some studies done in 2020 where they took 650 what they called healthy dogs, and then they took, I think, 300 unhealthy skin related dogs. It was just the skin. Because as somebody who, if I ever did go to vet school, I would have been a dermatologist, because I am absolutely obsessed with your dog's skin, absolutely obsessed with it. So I spend a lot of time researching it. But in 2020, they did a study on all of these dogs, and they were testing their skin bacteria, trying to figure out where each spot, like under the arm, is that different bacteria that live there than, on the back area or the underleg. And what they found out was, yeah, all of these different bacteria need to be in place in order to have a healthy animal. So it was pretty crazy. My vet made that diagnosis without any diagnostics. Really, I have done a mask like you're talking about, like it, but something to clean. I would try the Nui Gear shampoo. So I would use the probiotic, the goat's milk. I know it's gross, so just I get that. But if you can get it on there at night, and your pet's going to lick it off, which is fine because some will get left on. And then I would use the Nui Gear shampoo to wash it with, because the Nui Gear shampoo is good bacteria. And then I would be giving an oral probiotic, absolutely, because the oral just like Julianne always talks about on Adored Beast, and well, we all do, but Julianne really, really talks about diversity in your bacterias, because if you keep giving the same probiotic over and over and over and over and over again, that bacteria may have moved into, I always tell people, picture a puzzle, and each one of those puzzle pieces needs to be filled. But if that puzzle piece of that bacteria that you keep adding is already full, that piece has already been full, then that's all you're doing. You're not filling up all these others. And because there are billions and billions and billions of different bacteria that live in our gut, that it's a very good possibility that the bacteria that you're giving are the same. So when you're looking at your probiotics, and hopefully you're using a good product, but if you're looking at it, don't just look at the front of the label and go, oh, I'm going to try this probiotic instead of this probiotic. You really want to look at the label and find out if those are different pre and probiotics, because if they're not, and you're switching to try to see if that's the problem, you're wasting your time. So he loves the goat's milk. How do you prevent a dog from eating the goat's milk when you put it on the infected area? Oh, you don't. You just let them lick it. There'll be some left over. Don't worry about it. But they definitely are going to lick it, but just make sure you drench it on there. If they're really obsessing about it, I had one client who she was doing it to get rid of the tear stains on her dog. But the other dog would come over and lick it. And so the other dog was getting super annoyed. I would not use the powdered goat milk. you're going to get better results from the actual goat milk without it going through the freezing process. I mean, without going through the powdered process. I always try to use stuff in its natural state as possible because I think you get the best results. But I would say if your dog is really, Maureen, if he's really, really, really like gonna wipe it clean, he's not just licking a little bit, maybe put a cone on him, so that you can make sure that, but I use goat's milk for hot spots, all sorts of stuff, and it works really well. It works great for those tear stains. You just drench it on because it's a bacteria. That's how I know that it works for bacterial stains. You could take that same goat's milk, make sure it's raw, unpasteurized, or you're going to be wasting your time. And drench the face at night. And then in the morning, you can wash it off, but you just want to wash it off with water. You don't want to be, doing anything in between that. And like I said in the beginning, don't forget, guys, a water bath is okay. I mean, yes, your dog's not going to be super fluffy and look like the cleanest thing ever. But if you do go to a groomer or you're doing it at home, maybe if you're bathing your dog, like I said, try to go as long as you can go without bathing your dog. But let's say that you bathe your dog every 2 weeks. What if instead of fully shampooing your dog every 2 weeks, what if in 2 weeks you did just a water bath and a good brush out, just lukewarm or cold water, and really got in there with your hands and did that? You would be doing a really good thing for your animal's skin, because we are absolutely not replacing those bacteria we need to in the mouth and in the body and in the paws and all of that kind of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the microbubble machine. If you guys can get a hold of this. Now, call your veterinarians. I think your best bet is to get a hold of TheraClean. I think Lori posted that for you guys, and just ask them, because they sell them to veterinarian hospitals. They sell them to groomers. And they're just about to get FDA approval, which I'm so excited about, because we know it works. And for the FDA to say, okay, we've tested it. Once it becomes FDA approved, they're going to be using it for humans, and they're going to be using it for, believe it or not, of all things, toenail fungus, which is really, really interesting to us as an animal world, because people don't usually have yeast all over in their hair and under our armpits, and hopefully not, and all over our body where we're itching to death. But animals do. But where people get it is they get the toenail fungus. And so for the FDA to approve this microbubbles machine for toenail fungus for humans speaks volumes to whether or not this actually works to help get rid of yeast and problems in our dogs. So it's very interesting. So definitely call around and see if you can find somebody in your area that carries a microbubbles machine. But how microbubbles works is, I love it because it doesn't kill anything. So it's not destroying our dog's skin's microbiome at all. What it is billions and billions of little tiny bubbles. And if you've ever watched any of the videos I've done, it is actually very, very relaxing to your dogs. It is a very soothing bath. And what it is these bubbles, your dog's skin has 3 layers. And so we can see that top layer, and then there's 2 more layers in there. And every little hair follicle can get trapped in there with all sorts of old shampoos, dirt that's gone bad. I don't want to say anything bad about dirt, because I think your dog should roll around in the dirt so long as you know that the dirt is healthy and has its own microbes in it that your dogs can pick up. I often feed my dogs in the backyard in the dirt, which I know seems weird, but I often put my dog's food in the dirt and let them eat it. But that's because I know my soil in my backyard is very healthy for them. So, but making sure, now I lost my train of thought because one of my other cats now is over here causing some trouble. They just won't let me do this. But making sure that you get all of those microbes from feeding. And we were talking about microbubbles. I'm sorry. So the microbubbles, when the dogs go into the microbubbles bath, it goes through a couple of systems. And so the very first thing we do, which you should have learned from me, is I'm going to condition your dog. I wash my dog's feet after walking in the park daily. Black gray stuff comes off in the water. Is that okay? I'd have to see it. Probably okay. Are you just doing water, or what are you washing? So if you're washing with something very, very harsh, then you could be stripping your dog of stuff that your dog needs in order to protect the pads. The pads are the probably most resilient part. They are the most resilient part of your animal. They're designed to be able to be out in the wild and crawling things. But sometimes those pads are starting to get dried, and with age, they kind of crack a little bit. And so just a little bit of shampoo can start to strip that, and we don't want to do that. I would try just water, Lily. Just see what you can get done with just water. Don't discredit it. It's free for most of us. It's free. It does a really great job of doing it. Kin and Kind. Yeah, Kin and Kind is a good shampoo. But I would try any shampoos that you use, whether they're good or not good or whatever they are. They're still designed to strip away dirt. And so they have the potential of stripping away our good bacterias, which is why we want to go as long as we can. And if you're doing that every day on your dog's feet, I would really recommend cool water and see what happens. And if you can't get that to work, I do really like apple cider vinegar because it helps keep the pH the same. So I would definitely try that. I do like Kin and Kind. It's one of my favorite kind of personal shampoos for people. It's not the one that I use at my work, but it is a really good one. At work, I use a couple of different products, but like I told you, I love using Nui Gear shampoo. So what about goat wipes? I'd have to look at them. I'm not real familiar with goat wipes, but I'd have to know, and I could look at it and I could say, yeah, because you got to be careful. Like I remember one time somebody brought me some wipes they wanted to use on their dog's feet, and it was a chlorhexidine wipe. And not only did it have the chlorhexidine in it, but it had alcohol in it. It had so many other ingredients in it. So don't discredit the inactive ingredients. So a lot of times we look at ingredients and we forget that there's what they call inactive ingredients. And it's usually those inactive ingredients that are causing a bigger problem than the active ingredients. So you always want to make sure you're looking at both the inactive and the active. So going back to the microbubbles, if you can, and I don't want to obsess on this, but I cannot stress enough how amazing the microbubbles is. But if you can't use microbubbles, I still recommend doing this type of a shampoo, depending on your dog's situation. So there is another company called Ives San Bernard. And so this particular company makes a couple of great shampoos. There's only 3 of them that I recommend. One is called shoot, I'm going to forget, but you can look it up. It's their bacterial shampoo. That's a really good shampoo company to use. And I'll post a couple of pictures of it. I'll tell you what, I'll post it on here on the Spaw's webpage, because I can't remember the names of them, which you think I would know because I'm in it all day long. But they make some to help with that has placenta in it that helps hair growth. Because a lot of times when your dogs are having these skin problems and these issues and they're self-mutilating themselves, they make it so that their hair completely falls out. And so St. Ives makes some really great, if you want to call them medicated shampoos, you can, but they're not. They're more along the lines of natural, and they use stuff like good bacterias in order to grow, and stuff like placentas to grow. So may I ask, what would you recommend for wiping cats' butt with after their loose stool? Thank you. Oh, kitties. You know me and my cats. So I would say if you can't, if it's loose stool, then it's going to kind of be all over. It's going to be kind of gross. 2 things I recommend. If you have a long-haired cat, I recommend having a groomer get that hair around the back trimmed away. Because if you have a long-haired cat and they're getting loose stools, which we're going to talk about this, but since I have a little example here, have them shave this area out if you have a long-haired cat. And it's reason why is because this has happened a lot of times, particularly with cats that aren't able to get there. But if that poop gets loose enough and it kind of can cause like the hair to compact over the rectum, then your cat can't poop. They end up getting constipated. So if that's happening, I would absolutely 100% make sure that your groomer shaves that little area back there. More importantly, I would be concerned why your pet has loose stool. And if your cat has loose stool, you have to help me out, Yvonne. If your cat has loose stool and is not grooming herself or himself back there, we need to go to the vet. because those two combinations of things bring my ears up a little bit and scare me just a tad. Your cat shouldn't have loose stools, but in the event that your cat has loose stools, if it's just a one-time thing, I would say just use whatever you have to do to get all of that poop off, because it can be kind of gross. The one thing when I say use whatever you can use, don't use Dawn dishwashing soap, guys. It is actually very toxic for our animals. I know that a lot of people suggest it, but it is actually very harsh. Think about it. It is designed to take grease off of our dishes. And I know that they use Dawn dishwashing soap for during the Exxon Valdez. And I know a lot of you are probably way too young and don't know what the hell this old lady's talking about. But I know we have used it on wildlife, but keep in mind that was a one-time thing. We didn't use it on the same birds over and over and over every time they got fleas. So please don't use Dawn dishwashing soap. But if Yvonne, like you said, what I'm trying to say is if it's a one-time thing, then you can just use any kind of a shampoo, because loose stool can get really trapped into a cat's fur, more so than a dog's fur. So use what you have to, preferably a safe animal shampoo. But we got to look at why we have loose stool and if your cat isn't cleaning himself. And if you want to give me more information, I can tell you a little bit. So we should stay away from chlorhexidine. I have dental wipes with chlorhexidine in them, so I should stop using them. I would absolutely stop using the chlorhexidine, especially in the mouth, because you see what you're doing is, I told you, a lot of those bacteria get transferred from the mouth to your dog when he's licking himself or chewing or whatever he's doing. But you're killing not just the good bacteria, not just the bad bacteria in his mouth, you're killing the good bacteria in his mouth and also on his skin, Lily. So it's going to be really hard for him to put that back. Now, if he lived in the wild, he would go roll in some dirt, and he might even roll on a dead fermenting animal. And he would be in a pack with a whole bunch of animals, and they'd be transferring back bacterias, but he can't do that. So we have to be really, really careful about doing that. If you're looking for something to clean his mouth, I highly recommend, and I make these all the time. So Dr. Judy Morgan makes a dental drop that is amazing. I love, but I actually combine that in with some coconut oil. So I get the thick kind of toothpastey coconut oil, when it's hard. And then I mix in Dr. Judy's dental drops on top of it, because it has some deer velvet in there, and it's got some other stuff. And then that's what I brush my dog's teeth with. And I highly recommend it. I also highly recommend fermented chicken feet. Anything fermented that your dog can chew on is going to put those bacteria back in the mouth, which is something people don't realize. But our animals do get fermented stuff in the wild. They absolutely do. They eat animals that have been dying and fermenting. They're eating stuff. They're eating like if a rabbit dies and they eat the stomach content, which they eat a lot of the stomach content, which is where stuff is fermenting into the gut. They're eating that stuff and they're getting a lot of fermentation back into them. So anything fermented that you can get into your dog's mouth, and especially if you can, like the fermented chicken feet, those kind of things, they're going to be chewing on and getting that getting that bacteria back in their mouth. And then they'll transfer that bacteria when they're chewing and licking. Now, hopefully, once you get this under control and realize, oh my God, I've been destroying my animal's skin microbiome, hopefully we can get you to not have such an itchy dog. But keep in mind that it is normal for a dog to scratch and itch every once in a while. I mean, if you think about, we could probably go back through this tape. I probably scratched my head a couple of times or my arm a little bit. So that's not unusual to see a dog do. It's that constant self-mutilating where your dog's living in a cone that we start worrying about the skin's microbiome, which I think, I listen to talks all the time about the gut microbiome and allergies and apicols, but we're not talking about the overbathing of our animals. And so that's why I decided to come on here and really, really start talking to you guys about protecting that skin's microbiome. And how do you know? Is it always going to show up? Is your dog's skin always going to show up looking like there's some infection there? No, sometimes it's just overproducing oil. That's a first sign of something going on. And so if your dog's getting this greasy coat or he's shedding too much, the skin isn't healthy and there's something wrong. So, and I'm going to go back to that in 1 second. I have been using Down detergent. Oh my God, it's one time. Oh, Dawn. Oh, yeah. It's a one-time thing. He ate too much baked potato. Ate too much baked sweet potato skin. Okay, so he got it all over him. Okay. Sorry, it took me a minute. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Dawn detergent is unfortunately out there as if it's the miracle. It kills fleas. It does all this stuff. Don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. I used to use Dawn until I really started diving into it and thought, oh my God, what are we doing? Like this stuff is designed to take grease off of plates. But a one-time thing is not going to hurt. And so good. I'm glad you figured out what causes the diarrhea. So that's good. We got that under control. But hopefully we'll get if the diarrhea doesn't come back, then you won't need to worry about it too much. So the toothpaste, Maureen, is Dr. Judy's. So Lori posted that for you. I just mix a couple of her drops. It's not a toothpaste. It's just some drops that you're supposed to put into your dog's mouth. But I put it into a paste. I make my own with the thick coconut oil. And then I put a couple of drops. That's what we use at the spa. So if you ever bring your dog to the spa and your dog's getting his teeth brushed, it's my own personal toothpaste that I make with the help of Dr. Judy's drops because it has some really great stuff in there. Just read that all you need for detergent is vinegar. You've started using that in both our dishwasher and washing machine. Oh yeah, I've heard that too. Vinegar does such a great job. You know, I do a lot of pre-washing of the dogs at the spa with vinegar. So vinegar does a really great job. Obviously, it's going to make your dog smell like vinegar if that's the only thing you're using. But we do a little pre-rinse on a lot of our dogs because it helps exfoliate some of the skin. I know. Hi, Lauren. Lauren is in here, and boy, talk about going through June was a dog that I worked with it's been quite a few years on some skin issues and Lauren, I wish I would have had the micro bubbles back then. I think we could have got June to where she is today a lot faster using the micro bubbles machine. I just didn't know about it until, I brought it in and I just love it. There's also, you can do ozone, but I really like the micro bubbles a lot better. I'm getting way better results with the micro bubbles. So make sure you guys check out that. But June, I posted, June's a little, I was going to say pit bull, but she's more like a Stafford, I think. Hi, Beth. How are you? So June had, poor June, and Lauren had adopted, and June just had so much dysbiosis all over the skin. I mean, there just was no bacteria that survived anywhere on there. So, Beth, we're just talking a little bit about the skin's microbiome and not overbathing our dogs, making sure that we are keeping both the inside and the outside. They work together. So if your dog's skin is not healthy, I can guarantee you neither is his inside. So you really want to make sure you look that up. Goat wipe ingredients, water. Nope. Pineapple, oat acid. Ooh, this brought up some good stuff for me. Yeah, I would not use that. There's too much going on in there. So this is another thing. Thank you, Lily. This is another thing I want you to be really, really careful with. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. And chances are that you're dealing with a dog who's got some skin problems, which could be any number of things. It could be that we're overbathing and we've ruined the liver disease. We can talk a little bit about that. I don't have a vet on tonight. We were just talking about the skin microbiome, but I can help you a little bit if you want. But let's talk a little bit about what Lily just wrote. She wrote about the goat wipe ingredients. Thank you for putting the ingredients on there. So when you have this much stuff going on, and if your dog does have allergies, you are never, ever going to know what it is. So anything that has this much stuff in it, I stay away from. But more importantly, and another thing I want to talk about, let's talk about oatmeal shampoo. How many of you guys have used or are using oatmeal shampoo for your dogs who are itchy? Let's talk a little bit about that. What made me think of that is these goat wipes says oat acid. So I'm kind of interested in, I don't even know what that is. Polysorbate 20. Nope. Lily, I would get rid of it. Just use the goat's milk and then just wash it off with water. It'll be really, really amazing. Oh, I did do a YouTube on it. Thanks, Lori. I forgot. I can't remember if that one had Dr. Judy's drops in it. I think it did. But Lori always helps me. She's in the back, so she helps. So oatmeal. Okay. So I do a lot of allergy. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I get old and get distracted. Well, I'm always old, but sometimes I get distracted. And there, see, I just itched my head. Um, Anyway, I do a lot of allergy tests on dogs. There's a couple of allergy tests that I really like to do. Dr. Jean Dodds makes one that I really, really like. But what my point of saying this is that almost always, I almost want to say always, but I'm sure there's one or two out there. But almost always, it comes back that the animals are allergic to oatmeal. Almost always. And then we have people bringing me their dogs in with chronic allergies and they're using oatmeal shampoo. And I'm like, oh my God, I've wiped out oatmeal shampoo. Throw it away. Anything that has oatmeal in it, and if you have a dog who's itchy, throw it in the trash. Don't give it to another dog because that dog's going to have that problem too. So make sure you just get rid of it altogether. Nothing with oatmeal in it. It is a high allergen for dogs. I had a client years ago. It was awful. It was a little Bichon, and he brought her in wearing a t-shirt. It was so bad. This animal was just beet red all the way around. And if he didn't put the shirt on, she would just rip at herself. Well, when he brought her in, he didn't even know, he just didn't know. And he said, he handed me her oatmeal shampoo. And he says, can you use this shampoo on her? And I said, no, can you let me try? I even told him I'll bathe her for free. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But can I just bathe her in something else and see how she does? And we did. And he called me the next day and could not believe that it could be the oatmeal. So he actually went and took her to his vet. He didn't run one of my tests, which was fine. He went and took her to his vet, and sure enough, she was allergic to oatmeal. And so for 2 years, this dog was being bathed in oatmeal shampoo and wearing t-shirts and taking Apoquel and trying everything he could do. And all the while, he was just using an oatmeal shampoo. So that's why I'm here, guys. I want to make sure we always are thinking internal, and that's great. And we do need to address the internal because they work together. But we can't forget our first line of defense for your animals is their skin. And if you don't treat it well and you're not handling it the right way, you're allowing pathogens to get in through the skin and can cause all sorts of, dogs can get skin cancer. Dogs can get all sorts of issues that are coming through, even those lipomas and the stuff that's seeping in through the skin and getting into the in there. Witch hazel a few times a week for wipe downs, diluted betadine soaks a few times a week for extreme cases, coconut oil or honey cure for rough spots. I was using those chlorhexidine wipes, and it wasn't until I started working with Carrie that I learned to get rid of everything, and natural is always the best for a topical. Oh my gosh, Lauren, thank you. Witch hazel is a really great option. Witch hazel is good, but again, even witch hazel, it's just like, I don't know if you guys have heard of colloidal silver. So colloidal silver is the big, everybody, oh my God, colloidal silver, if you got this infection and that infection and do this. I know people who are giving colloidal silver every day to their dogs every day because they want to ward off any problem. But keep in mind that just like the holistic stuff, just like the traditional stuff, right? If you're doing something like colloidal silver and it's helping to kill off good bacteria, bad bacteria, it can also have that effect on good bacteria. So you need to be really careful. I do like witch hazel, though. It's really good. Betadine soaks are good. Coconut oil. Honey cure is one of my all-time favorite go-tos. If you guys don't have honey cure in your repertoire of stuff for your animals, I highly recommend honey cure. Lauren, if she could talk, would tell you some amazing stories about some honey cure just recently from a dog who had major surgery and had a removal. Those pictures were amazing, Lauren. I'm trying to read and do stuff at the same time, and I got to stop doing that. But honey cure is amazing. The company wouldn't like probably that I'm saying this, but once every week or two, I use the honey cure on my face as an exfoliant because it has honey and tea tree oil in it. And the honey is crystallized. And so it's like a little exfoliant. I use it on my face and I absolutely love honey cure. Scented creams, candles, anything scented. We'll never use toxic cleaners around the house. Good job, Beth. Good job. Especially with our animals, I talk a lot about that. Um, the smells that are going on. I had a client years ago, and the dog was having these little mini seizures. And we found out it took her a minute, and we had to really get it into her head and like, okay, you got to start paying attention. What's happening when he has a seizure? What is going on? Because there's so many reasons. Turns out every time she would light a candle is when this dog would leave the room. And so she really started figuring it out that, yeah, she thinks it was the candle smell that was causing these little seizures and he knew. So if she would light the candle, he would run into the other room. Not always when she lit the candle were the seizures happening, but yeah, she was linking it back to that and why he would leave. And she thought he was just afraid of the flame. But then she started realizing that, oh my God, the candle was on when he had the last seizure. And so she started realizing that it could be that. Remember, your animals have a very heightened ability to smell, and they're very sensitive. Their olfactory glands are really, really sensitive. So we got to be really super careful with what smells are around our animals. Because they're going to react and they're going to have those reactions. So colloidal silver, what did it say? I'm just curious. I'm going to look it up. I like colloidal silver. Don't get me wrong. But Dr. Suter always talks about how to be holistic, you have to ask the why. Why is this happening? Not just this is happening, so therefore I'm going to use this. Because in holistic medicine, we're seeing the same thing. What about feeding them 1 teaspoon of oatmeal? It's hard. I know Dr. Karen Becker and some other vets are saying you can give them a little bit of oatmeal. And we all talk about how treat the dog in front of you, deal with the dog in front of you. Unless my dog needed oatmeal, unless there was some reason that my dog needed oatmeal, I needed him to gain weight, or there was a reason to give oatmeal, I would not give it. So, but there are some studies and some people and some vets that are coming out and saying oatmeal. But if I did give oatmeal, it would have to be because he had to have it. And then it would be made sure that it was very organic, nothing else added into it. You have to be really careful, but a lot of times there's stuff out there that sure we can feed our animals, but if it doesn't have the effects that we want, that we need. The Dateline was about a woman that was given it every day and she died. Well, there you go. I just think, and that's why I love Dr. Suter, because like Dr. Suter talks a lot about is finding out the why and understanding that as a holistic person, that does not mean that every time something goes wrong, I'm holistic because I reach for the holistic thing. Holistic means you look for the why. Why is this happening? And what would be the results of me doing this? So if we give colloidal silver every single day to our animals to make sure that they don't get sick, we're not just killing off the bad bacteria, we're killing off the good bacteria. So while colloidal silver has been studied to work quite well at eye infections, ear infections, all sorts of stuff, Dr. Suter would tell you, what's the why? Why does your dog have an eye infection? Why does your dog have a skin infection? What is that? And how do we address that? And so that's what is so important and why I wanted to come on here. I think I'm going to be coming on here a lot more. In between, Lori and I have been talking about how I should probably come on a little bit more and start giving more of my perspectives as far as my experience. She was turning blue. It was obvious something was wrong. Oh my gosh. I have to watch that. We all have to watch that. That's what we should do. We should have like I don't know what to call it, but you know how they have book clubs where you have to watch this and then, or read this book and then you meet and you talk about the book. We should have like, let's all read this study or let's all watch that Dateline episode. And then we'll reconvene back here next Wednesday and we'll talk. But I don't want to stop bringing on the experts that come on, but I think every once in a while, you guys are just going to hear from me. I hope that's okay. Did I even tell you guys about the microbubbles, how it works? I don't think I did. I'll give you guys I can do a few more minutes here. So the microbubbles is billions and billions of bubbles. And what it does is when it pops, when those bubbles pop, when they explode and they're exploding by the billions and billions, it draws all of that. I told you, especially your dog, because he's got Manuka honey. Yes, is amazing. That's what I love about the honey cure is Manuka honey and tea tree oil and jojoba oil. And it's an amazing combination. It is absolutely amazing. But so when the microbubbles pop, if you can find somebody that has these, and remember I told you, Lori put it on there, you guys can check up the TheraClean. And ask them. But when those bubbles pop, they actually pull and draw out from every single hair follicle on your dog. It will pull out and clean without using any products at all. It's just the bubbles pull out. So when I do a microbubbles bath on an animal, and that's why they work so well on the sebaceous cyst. Somebody had asked me about what I would recommend for sebaceous cyst. I absolutely, without a doubt, would. You mentioned something earlier. Sorry if I missed it. I have been using coconut oil to hydrate the skin. Did you say it actually is drying? It can be. Yes, absolutely. So if your dog has dry skin, two things I would recommend. Internally, I would recommend giving a raw egg every day. I would have to know, Veronica, what shampoo you're using, because there's a good chance that the shampoo you're using is causing that problem, which is why, or the frequency of how often you're bathing your dog, or if you're not using a conditioner. So if you missed it in the beginning, I said very, very important for every single animal, dog, cat, dog or cat. I was going to say turtle, but that was just not going to go over well. You want to make sure that you are conditioning first, always get a good conditioner. So you condition first before you do anything. You wet your dog down and you put a good conditioner in there and you really get it down into the skin and condition. Then you wash your dog and then you condition lastly. So if your dog is got dry skin, then you're going to absolutely want to use conditioners. And then an egg is really, really good. If you can get a raw egg in, it's really good for the skin. There's a lot of proteins and cysteine and all sorts of stuff for the skin. Also, if the skin is really, really, really dry and you've tried everything else, or maybe even if you just want to go do it, go have your dog's vitamin D levels tested, because vitamin D is not absorbed into your dog through the sun like we do. So they have to get it from their diet. And if they're having some really dry skin that you just can't figure it out, like you're doing the conditioners, you're not overbathing, you're not doing all of these stuff, then you're going to want to go have your dog's vitamin D levels tested. How often do you recommend bathing? I say the same thing to everybody. Go as long as you can. Go as long as you can stand it without, because like I said, they're probably sleeping in your beds, most of us. My dog's nose is cracked bad. Beth, what kind of dog do you have? Yes, I have microbubbles at the spa, and yes, you can add it on in there. So unfortunately, it is really expensive because it's not just the microbubbles that we're using; it's a whole system. So I've actually created my own shampoos that I'm using with the microbubbles. But yeah, you can add it on for sure. A border terrier. So two things, Beth, I can say about a cracked nose. So I always, when we have like a little nose issue, it is recommended to look up dog noses and lupus and see if that picture looks the same. There's also certain breeds that end up with where it's not actually a dry nose. It's actually more of I don't want to say it's a hormonal. I can't remember the name of it. If I saw the pictures, I could tell you. You can send me pictures to the email. If you guys ever, after this, you still have some questions, you can always email me at thespadogs@gmail.com and then just put attention Carrie. Does raw egg have bad bacteria and parasites? Can I feed it to my 4.5-old kitten without getting any issues? Oh my gosh, Yvonne. So yes and no. So does raw eggs have bad bacteria? So raw eggs can carry salmonella, but animals don't get sick from salmonella. So you don't have to worry about your animal. You just have to worry about washing your hands. But it does. And yes, you can give it to, I have my little kitten running around here right now. She eats 100% raw. She is a raw fed kitten. Oh my gosh, with chronic hepatitis from ultrasound biopsy last May. 12 years old, border terrier. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Beth. Yeah. That's not good. Diet is going to be your best friend, Beth. Diet. I hope, if you're not learning from me, you're learning a little bit from everybody else that you're probably coming on and looking to get some information, but I would really, really talk pretty strongly about a species appropriate diet. At 12 years old, I'm a little bit different than some of the other people, even the people that I bring on here, because I bring on so many different people because I want you guys to take a little bit from all of us and then put it together for your own animals, because each animal is different. So I don't ever want you to just go, well, Carrie said all animals this, or Dr. Morgan said this, or Rita said this, or whoever it is. Each animal is different, and you guys have to learn to take this information, but pay attention to your animals, because only you can. You are there with your animals, listening to them, watching them, breathing, all of that stuff. But what I will say is at 12 years old, I am starting to with my older dogs, and I will call, unfortunately, I'm calling 12 an older dog. However, I wish that wasn't the case. And my goal is to make that not be the case. I really want 12 to be middle-aged, especially because we know that dogs can live to be well into their 20s. Our oldest living dog was 29 years old, and Maggie just passed away in 2017. She was a large old dog, and she was 29 as well as Bowie. Bowie died in 1929. Hang on, Lily, and I'll answer that. But at an older age dog, I'm doing a lot more vegetables and lowering a little bit of their proteins. And I'll just tell you my theory behind this, just from doing some research with some wolf experts and spending some time with wolves. Our wolves in the wild, their lifespan is about 7 years old. So they live to be about 7. In captivity, we've been able to get them to be about 15. So if we look at our domesticated dogs, we can probably safely assume that they weren't designed, their organs and their things were not designed to live to be much past that. But because we've taken into our homes and we're offering all sorts of different medical treatments and stuff, we're getting them to live a little bit longer. But are they designed to go that long? And if they're not, can we still be giving them the same amount of proteins, the heavier proteins that the kidneys are supposed to work on flushing them out? And so what I've been doing with my own dogs, because they're getting older, is my dogs have a veggie day where I give them no protein. I give them nothing but veggies, and they get a lot of leafy greens. I give them dandelion root. I do a lot of juicing myself. So if you watched on here, you might have seen where I posted my pulp from my juicer. And in that was dandelion, pineapple, spinach, apple, I think was in there. And so I do a veggie day once a week for my dogs where they don't have any protein, which I highly recommend to our older dogs just to kind of help with their kidneys. Just lost my 16-year-old boy. Oh, Beth, I'm so sorry. Trying to learn good diet. She is on small batch raw, gets natural, Sammy, adored beast liver tonic, Phytos flora, goat's milk, green juju. Beth, you are doing your homework. Those are all really, really great stuff. Lily, I want to know that too. Just lost. Did I miss a question here? Sorry if I missed, but would you recommend honey cure for a dog with occasional hot spots? He's on a raw diet. Let me find this. Hang on. Did I lose it? Let me find it. Hang on. I got to find that question. They get lost pretty quick. Let's see. I maybe missed it. You're doing micro bubbles. Hang on. Raw egg. Honey cure for occasional hot spots. He is on a raw diet and hasn't had one in over a year, but he just had one show up the other day. Okay. So Kennedy. So the answer is yes, but we have to figure out why he's getting hot spots. So he should not be getting hot spots. So something is wrong. So he either his gut microbiome or his skin's microbiome is upset. So we have to figure out why. So you said he didn't get one for a while, but he just had one show up the other day. So do me a favor, go back 2 weeks. I always tell people, go back 2 weeks. You got to really think it through and find out what might have happened 2 weeks ago. It's usually about 2 weeks for something to have happened and then showed up. So Kennedy, what I would say is ask yourself this. Did he recently get a vaccine? Did he get any injections at all? Did you give him flea and tick medication or heartworm medication? Did you change his diet? Was there stress in the home? Did he come in contact with any other animals that might have had? Remember, I told you guys at the beginning of this that animals transfer bacteria back and forth. That's both good and bad. So was he around another animal that might have had some form of a bacteria, bad bacteria that he might have picked up that he could have gotten into? How's his mouth? If his mouth is not clean and he's transferring bad bacteria, maybe he chewed there, made it worse. So you really got to find out the why. But in the meantime, we have to help him. And yes, Honey Cure is amazing for clearing up hot spots, but we want to look at the why. Trying to live a good diet. She's on Small Batch. Replying to Lily. Just lost my 16-year-old. I feed Dr. Harvey's Raw Vibrance, Fab 4, egg turkey burgers. I'm not real familiar with Fab 4. Here was one. What do you recommend for cleaning the ears? Okay. Remember I told you guys, like, over cleaning the skin, we can disrupt the gut's microbiome. I actually don't recommend cleaning the dog's ears, so unless there's an issue. And even then, the only thing I recommend is coconut oil and water. But your dog's ear, I love these vets who are like, you need to put an ear solution in their ear, once a week. So your dog's ear canal kind of looks like this. It's like a little L-shaped. The area that you can see is just the little tip of your finger right there. That's the part you can see. And then there's all this canal down in here. So if you're constantly putting fluid down into your dog's ear, now I will say this till the day I die. Ear infections are not caused by water. Absolutely not. The only way that we can get an ear infection is through bacteria. So unless your water is filled with bacteria, water doesn't cause ear infections. I just posted a video from TheraClean did, and they have a veterinarian on there talking about how ear infections are caused, and they are not caused by water. However, if your dog has a disrupted microbiome, his gut is disrupted or the ear is disrupted, and we don't have that diversity that we need on the skin and in the ear, then you get water in the ear and it makes it really moist in there. Well, guess what likes to live there? What likes to live in a moist area is yeast, and some bacteria like it nice and wet. And so they gravitate to the ear, but it is actually not the water causing it. It's the disruption in your dog's skin or gut microbiome. So we really want to make sure that we are protecting that. But let's say your dog does have an ear infection and it is in there. The only thing I recommend is making sure just coconut oil and water is what I use. And I don't use a lot of it. I put it on like one of those cotton rounds, and I'll wipe it all the way out with coconut oil and water. Now, depending on your dog, some dogs get really greasy from it. So you got to be really careful. I just put I don't squirt it down into the ear. And then I wipe it out, and then I will wipe it out until it's nice and dry. And that's what I do. But I have two dogs. One is a Havanese. So she has the floppy ears. And then one is a golden retriever. Both the golden retriever and the Havanese, if I were to go to your traditional allopathic veterinarian, would tell me, oh, those dogs are prone to ear infections. Well, my dogs are 12 and 11, and neither one of them have ever had an ear infection, and I have never cleaned their ears. So I don't recommend cleaning the ears, but in the event that you have a dog with an ear infection, coconut oil and water is my favorite thing. And then to start, you can also use, I told you guys at the beginning of this about a product called Nui Gear. We call it the N shampoo. You can get it from a company down in San Diego called K9 to 5. They make a lotion, which I mentioned is not really a lotion. But I sometimes will put a little of that in there because that is good bacteria. And I will just kind of do a nice little spray around the outside of the ear, and then I'll wipe it in there and I'll leave it. And that is good bacteria. So I like to do that. No vaccinations or medications given in over a year. The only thing that I changed was a transition from RFM grinds last week from pre-made raw small batch OC raw. You definitely got to look into it. So RFM, somebody help me out with that. I don't know what I know when it comes to me. When you say it, I'll probably know, but I don't know all of the companies. It used to be there was only a few companies that I thought were great, and now there's so many of them that are coming out that are just better and better. But I would look into that, because usually when a hotspot comes on, Raw Feeding Miami. So I'm not saying that it's bad. Keep in mind, guys, sometimes like I've had to tell people stop giving small batch or stop giving OC raw dog, because your dog can be allergic to anything. They can be allergic to, my father-in-law's allergic to bananas. So just because it's healthy doesn't mean your animal can't have a reaction to it. And when we talk about allergies, like if you didn't make it to the Redefining Health, the video is available for sale. So I hate to say that. I wish I could give it to you guys, but it's actually going to help us pay for next year. And plus some more leftover from this year. But if you're interested, Rita Hogan does an amazing, amazing talk about allergies and food sensitivities and herbs and things that you can do that just was amazing, amazing, amazing. So, and it's only $24.99 and you'll have it for life and you can watch it and you can refer to it. And there's all sorts of stuff on there, but I would really, really recommend, especially if you're dealing with a dog with allergies, to listen to Rita talk, and she gives you slides and she shows you, and it's really, really amazing. So I would absolutely recommend getting that. So raw feeding Miami, I got to look into that one. Very important. Can you repeat about the hand sanitizer? I didn't talk about hand sanitizers, but if you think about hand sanitizer, right, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to, Patricia, you just tapped into, you guys are going to have me here all night because you're tapping into some of my favorite things to talk about. But hand sanitizer, same thing, right? It's going to kill everything, especially hand sanitizer. It's got alcohol in it. It doesn't just kill the good, it kills the bad. You got to replace it. So I would absolutely stay away from hand sanitizers altogether. Do you pluck the hair of the ears? I was told that would help prevent ear infections, but I said, no, thank you. Good girl. So Patricia, here's the thing. Back when I was a vet tech, we were taught if you didn't pluck the ear hair, that you were a horrible, awful person. And my vet that I used to work for, if you brought your dog in and the ear hair wasn't plucked by your groomer, he would use that to get you to be his client. So he would say, oh, your groomer, she didn't pluck the ear hair. That's a bad groomer. My groomer will do it. And then he would get that client. And then, so I was taught, so that's how I learned how to groom. I was a vet tech, and then the groomer at the vet hospital made more money than I did, frankly. And I was a single mom at the time. And so she's like, I'll teach you how to groom. And so that's how I learned. And so I was taught by her, who was taught by him, that if you wanted to be a good groomer, you had to pluck those ears clean. There shouldn't be a piece of hair in there at all. So I carried that over when I went to the spa, and I was really adamant about making sure we plucked the ear hair. But as time went by, I started really realizing that whether I plucked them or didn't pluck them, these dogs all got ear infections. So what was causing the ear infection? And that was the actual reason why I started getting more and more into learning about the skin and the ears microbiome, was through ear plucking studies that I was doing at work. I was looking at all these dogs and I was like, oh my God, we're plucking and they're still getting the ear infection. So I stopped ear plucking, because if it's not going to prevent the ear, it's very painful to have your ear hair plucked. Can you imagine? I mean, we got to get in there and just like pull. And I told you the ear canal looks like this. So what you can see is this, but that root of that hair is down here. So when I pull the ear hair out, I can tell you it's like this long sometimes when I pull it, and it just comes out, and it's just awful. And so ear plucking, absolutely, I don't do. But that being said, sometimes a vet needs to get down in there and really see if there's damage to like an eardrum or something. And in that case, you would have to pluck the ear hair. But generally speaking, I don't touch the ear hair, other than I trim it around this little, like the hairs that are kind of coming out of the ear. I might trim it, but you got to be really careful with scissors. If you haven't done that before, I'd be really, really careful. Any other suggestions? Her ALT was only thing elevated last AST. Oh my gosh. I also am feeding my liver issue girl several meals a day. How is that? I would say, Beth, how is it working? So if you're feeding her several meals a day, is it making a difference? Because if not, you might want to try feeding her only once a day. And making sure. Now, a lot of dogs, people say, will throw up if you feed them once a day. But what I have found is those dogs have a disrupted microbiome, and that's why they're throwing up. And so sometimes you can give them some really good probiotics. But if feeding her several meals a day isn't really quite getting you what the results you're looking for, try feeding her once a day. You'd be surprised at what doing that would help with, because of, like I said, when they get older, things start to slow down and it's harder. But I'm not a vet, but I would try it for a week. And if you don't see any responses, like she's not vomiting, you don't have any of those kind of things, then I would say, oh, ear care first. I know I get all over the care. Oh, I get all over the place. So I think I did finish ear care though. Make sure like I said, I don't clean the dog's ears. I don't. If I do, it's because there's already an ear infection, and then I'm going to address Stephanie asked me if there was anything I left out, because now I got all distracted. She's lost 2 pounds. She vomits if she doesn't eat. Okay, so I would go and get her some healthy gut from Adored Beast, and I would start giving that to her for a couple of weeks. And then after those 2 weeks are up, I would try to transition her to feeding her once a day and see what happens. See if you can get her ALT down. Her ALT was only thing elevated. But be careful. A lot of the vets, when I bring them on, they always say the same thing. They treat the animal. So a lot of times you can have an ALT that's raised, but the dog actually isn't. There isn't anything wrong. So like I said, I'm not a vet, so that might be more in a vet's world to stop the phytosflora. Yeah. Yeah. Try stopping that. She vomits if she doesn't eat. Yeah, absolutely. Remember, I told you guys in the beginning, there's billions of bacteria both on our skin and our stomachs and our eyes, all this kind of stuff. And if you're giving the same probiotic over and over, you could be filling that one puzzle piece over and over and over and not all of the other puzzle pieces. So you definitely want to do some different stuff. Try the healthy gut. And see if you get a different result from that, and do it for about 2 weeks. When do you think about True Blue dental wipes? Water, witch hazel, glycerin, liver fat? Nope, 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 nope. Nope, I'd be really careful. For those of you who don't know, rosemary is now being studied pretty heavily to be a trigger for seizure dogs. So you want to be really careful with stuff, and anything that says flavor, I don't use. So that ingredient right there, Lily, says liver flavor. I have no idea what that is. So that right there tells me that the company is not real interested in nutrition. So I get rid of. I've heard wiping with oil is better than most ear cleaners and not plucking. But if the dog has already had their ears overplucked and it's starting to look like cauliflower ear due to constant infections, how do you go about possibly reversing this issue? Okay, so the cauliflower ear, has your dog had a hematoma before during the ear infection? So sometimes when dogs get those hematomas and the blood sucks back up, you get that cauliflower ear. I have not been able to see. I don't know if that can be reversed. I've never seen that get reversed. I like using the coconut oil and water to clean the ears, definitely, but I put it on a pad and then I wipe it off. So I don't flush the ear with coconut oil and water unless it's really bad. I mean, you have to have like a massive ear infection for me to do a flush on a dog. And that's because if the ear is already that bad, a flush certainly isn't going to hurt it. But coconut oil and water, absolutely 100%. Love using coconut oil and water to clean the ears for two reasons. One, it works really well. Two, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize or will mention to you, when you're using products to clean the ears that have alcohol or other things in it, do you realize how close the eye is to your dog's ear? And just the slightest bit of that rolling down, like you tilt your dog's ear and then you put it in there, squeeze it in there, which is what vets want you to do. Your dog backs away from you and it leaks down and it can get into the eye. And coconut oil is absolutely, if it gets in the eye, it's going to be fine. So, and because we do so many dogs a day, coconut oil is by far the safest thing, but it can leave your dog's head and ears, greasy. So you want to make sure you have a little shampoo afterwards so that you can get the hair around there clean. So all right, guys, I am going to go ahead and let you go. I'm so glad that you guys were here. I wasn't sure. I told Lori, oh, no one's going to come on because it's just me. I don't have one of the vets on today. So, but I really do want to be your pet's life coach. When I first started using that term to describe myself, I kind of giggled. But as time goes by, I realized that really is a calling for me. It's a new client that I'm grooming, and it looks like the dog has powder constantly coming out. Powder constantly coming out. I suspect the owners are doing plucking probably at home to prevent. And the next time I see that, I plan to mention the TheraClean ear flushing. Yeah, TheraClean is amazing. Absolutely, absolutely. I've used TheraClean only. And those ear powders, some dogs can be allergic to them too, Stephanie. So, people keep using those ear powders. I used to tell people to use boric acid. You could do a light dusting of a boric acid if there is already an ear infection. But yeah, coconut oil and water, and I would stop the plucking. I can't wait till groomers can get on board with the stop the plucking, because I think we have so many animals, both nail clips and ear plucking. I really want them both to stop. I wish they would outlaw nail trimmers. So maybe I'll do that as a talk next time. So, but anyway, I'm super excited that you guys were here, and I am just so excited to be your pet's life coach. I'm always available. You can certainly email me. You can call the spa at any time. You can, if you need to do a consultation, I do consultations that you can sign up for. But I just am so glad that you guys are here. I love this. I'm totally going to keep using it. Oh, yeah, no problem. I'm one of those groomers trying to help stop this issue. It's so awful. It's so awful. The nail trimming, it's barbaric in my opinion. It's old school barbaric because it was fast, and when it's done between the ear plucking and the nail trimming, we have dogs that are scared to death to get groomed, and then us groomers get blamed because they're like, what did you do to my dog? I didn't do anything. And so it becomes kind of an issue. So what about I can't read it. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm not sorry, Lily. I'm not familiar. But maybe we can talk about it next week. So um, keep in mind, I have a couple of new people coming on that are going to be on here. So the two crazy cat ladies are going to be joining us in the next couple of weeks. I have Dr. Katie Kangas, who's joined our group, and so she's going to be joining us pretty soon. So we have a couple of new people coming on that if you don't know, I'm excited to introduce you to. If you do know them, I'm super happy that you're going to get to talk to them. Oh, thank you, Maureen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week. Lori is behind the scenes. She's the one typing everything in there. So Lori, thank you. Thank you so much always for being here and helping us keep this going. Please tell your friends, and I will see you guys next week. Okay. Take care, everybody.